My fiance's parents said, "We'll pay for the wedding if we control everything." So I paid for it myself, and they watched from the cheap seats. Let me back up. I met Owen at a coffee shop where I was studying for the bar exam. He spilled his latte on my constitutional law notes, apologized profusely, bought me another coffee, and asked if he could make it up to me with dinner. 3 years later, he proposed on the same corner where that coffee shop used to be before it closed down. I should have seen the red flags during that first family dinner. Owen's mother, Diane, greeted me at the door with air kisses that didn't touch my cheeks. His father, Richard, barely looked up from his phone. The house was one of those modern monstrosities with more square footage than warmth, all white marble and cold steel. "So you're the lawyer," Diane said, making it sound like an accusation. "Almost," I said. "I take the bar in 6 weeks." "How practical," she said in a tone that meant the opposite. Owen's last girlfriend was a Vanderbilt. Her family summered in the Hamptons. Owen squeezed my hand under the table. I squeezed back, thinking this was just awkward small talk. I had no idea it was a declaration of war. The dinner was excruciating. Diane spent 2 hours listing everything Owen's ex-girlfriend had accomplished by age 25. Richard interrupted occasionally to mention his connections at various law firms, the implication being that I'd need his help to get anywhere. When I mentioned I already had a job offer at a firm I'd worked for during law school, Diane's smile tightened. "Oh, you'll want to reconsider that once you and Owen start a family," she said. "No point in building a career you'll just abandon." I started to respond, but Owen jumped in. "Mom, we've talked about this. Let's not do this tonight." That should have been my first clue. Not that his mother was controlling, but that he'd had this conversation with her before, and nothing had changed. We left early, claiming I had to study. In the car, Owen apologized. "They're just protective," he said. "Once they get to know you, they'll love you." I wanted to believe him. I really did. The engagement was perfect. Small, intimate, just us and the sunset. I called my parents immediately. My mom cried happy tears. My dad demanded to meet Owen properly, which meant a barbecue in their backyard with my 3 brothers and their families. It was chaos and laughter and my nephew spilling juice on Owen's pants, and everyone teasing him about joining the family. Owen fit right in. Then we called his parents. "That's wonderful, darling," Diane said in that flat tone people use when they're absolutely not thrilled. "When are you coming over? We need to discuss the wedding." The wedding discussion happened 3 days later. Owen and I had already talked about what we wanted. Something small, maybe 75 people, at this beautiful garden venue I'd found. Intimate, personal, affordable, since we were saving for a house. We hadn't even sat down before Diane pulled out a 3-ring binder. I'm not kidding. A 3-ring binder with tabs and printed spreadsheets. "I've been planning this wedding since Owen was born," she announced. "I have very specific ideas." "Mom," Owen started, but she held up a manicured hand. "Let me finish. Your father and I want to give you the wedding of your dreams. The Ashford estate, 300 guests, full orchestra, 8-course dinner. We'll cover everything." She slid a folder across the table. "I've already contacted vendors." I opened the folder. The venue was a castle, an actual imported stone castle that some billionaire had rebuilt in Connecticut. The estimated cost was $450,000. "This is incredibly generous," I said carefully, "but it's not really our style. We were thinking something smaller, more intimate. Nonsense. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Everyone who matters will be there." "Everyone who matters to whom?" I asked. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. "To us," Diane said, each word precise. "To our family, our friends, our business associates. Owen is our only son. This wedding will be done properly." Richard finally looked up from his phone. "We're offering to pay for everything. That should make this easy." "It does," I agreed, "and we appreciate it. But this is our wedding. We should have a say in what it looks like." Diane's smile could have cut glass. "Of course, dear. You'll have plenty of input on the things that matter to you. The dress, your bridesmaids, those little details. But the overall vision, the important decisions, those will need to reflect the standard our family maintains." "The standard your family maintains," I repeated slowly. "Our family, which you'll be joining." She tapped the binder. "I've been cultivating relationships with these vendors for years. The photographer did the governor's daughter's wedding. The florist is flown in from Amsterdam. This is the kind of event that makes a statement." "What statement?" I asked. She looked at me like I was simple. "That you're worthy of being an Owen's wife." Owen had been quiet this whole time, his jaw tight. Now he spoke up. "Mom, I think we need to talk about this privately." "What's there to talk about?" Diane's voice rose slightly. "We're offering you a $450,000 wedding. Most couples would be grateful." "We are grateful," Owen said. But nothing. This is what we're offering. Take it or plan your own little backyard affair if that's what you prefer." She said backyard affair, the way most people say sewage leak. The drive home was silent. Finally I asked, "Does she always get her way?" Owen sighed. "Pretty much. Growing up it was easier to just go along with whatever she wanted. Less fighting." "Owen, this is our wedding. It's supposed to be about us." "I know, but maybe she has a point. I mean, it would be an incredible party. And it's free." "It's not free if the cost is losing control of our own wedding day." He didn't have an answer for that. That night, I made a spreadsheet of my own. I calculated what we could afford to spend. I researched venues, caterers, photographers. By 3 a.m., I had a complete wedding plan that we could pay for ourselves. It wouldn't be elaborate, but it would be ours. The next morning, I told Owen my decision. "I'm not letting your mother plan our wedding," I said. "We're going to do this ourselves." "With what money?" he asked. "We're saving for a house." We'll use some of the house fund. We'll work extra. We'll make it work." "That's insane. My parents are offering to pay for everything." No, they're offering to pay for their wedding. The one they want, with their friends, their vision, their control. I don't want that. Do you? He was quiet for a long moment. No, he admitted, but turning them down is going to cause a massive fight. Then we fight. We called his parents that evening. I'd offered to let Owen handle it alone, but he wanted me there for support. We've decided to plan our own wedding, Owen said. We appreciate your generous offer, but we want something more personal. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then Diane laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. You're joking. We're not, I said firmly. We've already started making plans. Plans with what money? Richard asked. Owen, you're barely established in your career. You can't afford the kind of wedding that reflects your standing. We can afford what we want, Owen said. It might not be the Ashford estate, but it'll be nice. Nice, Diane repeated, her voice dripping with disdain. You're willing to settle for nice when we're offering you spectacular. Do you have any idea how this will look? To whom? I asked again. To everyone. My friends, our business associates, the partners at Richard's firm. What will they think when they receive an invitation to some shabby little ceremony? If they're really our friends, they'll be happy we're getting married regardless of where it happens. You're being incredibly naive, Diane said. And selfish. Do you realize what this means to us? Our only son's wedding? Then you should be happy we're planning something we'll actually enjoy instead of a performance for your social circle. The line went dead. She'd hung up on me. That went well, Owen said weakly. The next few weeks were brutal. Diane called Owen daily, alternating between tearful guilt trips and cold fury. She sent emails outlining everything we were giving up by refusing her help. She forwarded articles about proper wedding etiquette, all highlighting the importance of meeting family expectations. Richard tried a different approach. He called to discuss Owen's career trajectory, casually mentioning how helpful it would be to have certain people at the wedding, people who could open doors, people who definitely wouldn't come to a backyard affair. My own parents were confused, but supportive. It's your wedding, my dad said. You do what makes you happy. My mom was more direct. Sounds like your future mother-in-law needs to learn some boundaries. I threw myself into planning. I found a beautiful botanical garden that cost a fraction of the Ashford estate. I hunted for a photographer on Craigslist who turned out to be incredibly talented but just starting out. I ordered flowers from a local shop instead of flying them in from Amsterdam. I made centerpieces with my bridesmaids during craft nights. It was exhausting, working full-time at the law firm and planning a wedding on nights and weekends. But every decision we made felt right. Every choice reflected us. Owen was less certain. I'd catch him staring at his phone after his mother's latest guilt trip. She says my grandmother is devastated that she won't be able to see her only grandson married in a proper venue. Your grandmother is 91 and barely leaves her house. She's not devastated about the venue. But what if mom's right? What if we're being selfish? Owen, we're planning our own wedding with our own money according to our own wishes. That's not selfish. That's normal. But they're offering to pay for everything. At what cost? Your mother wants to control every single detail. She wants 300 guests we don't even know. She wants a wedding that's designed to impress her friends. Is that what you want? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. The breaking point came 6 weeks before the wedding. Diane called me directly, which she rarely did. I need you to understand something, she said, skipping any pretense of pleasantries. You're tearing my family apart. I'm planning a wedding. You're destroying our relationship with our son. He won't talk to his father about work anymore. He canceled our weekly dinners. He's pulling away from us, and it's your fault. Diane, Owen is an adult. If he's setting boundaries, that's his choice. Boundaries, she spat. Is that what you call cutting your parents out of the most important day of their son's life? You're not cut out. You're invited guests like everyone else. Guests? We're supposed to sit there like strangers and watch you parade our son through some gardening wedding? Do you know how humiliating that is? It's a botanical garden, and I'm not parading anyone anywhere. We're getting married in a place we love, surrounded by people who actually care about us. I care about my son. Then prove it. Come to the wedding and be happy for him. That's all we're asking. Don't you dare tell me how to care for my child. I've known him his entire life. You've known him for 3 years. You have no idea what this family means, what we've built, what we expect. I know Owen, and I know what he wants. It's not a $450,000 spectacle designed to impress your country club friends. You're making a mistake, both of you. And when you realize it, when your little budget wedding falls apart and you need help, don't come crawling to us. We won't, I said and hung up. My hands were shaking. I'd never been confronted like that before. My own family had conflicts, sure, but they were loud and messy and resolved over dinner. This was different. This was cold, calculated, designed to make me doubt myself. Owen came home to find me stress-eating ice cream straight from the container. Your mother called, I said. What did she say? I told him. Everything. The accusations, the manipulation, the ultimatum. He listened quietly, his expression darkening. I'm done, he said finally. Done with what? Done with her bullshit. I've been trying to keep the peace, trying to make everyone happy, but she's not interested in peace. She's interested in control. He pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. There. I just sent them a message. They can come to the wedding and behave like normal guests, or they can stay home. Their choice. Owen, no, you were right from the beginning. This is our wedding, our life, and I'm not letting her poison it anymore. His phone immediately started ringing. He sent it to voicemail. It rang again, voicemail again. Then text started flooding in. He turned the phone off completely. We're doing this our way, he said. Whatever happens, happens. The invitations went out 2 weeks later. Elegant but simple, printed on recycled cardstock, designed by my best friend who was a graphic designer. They were perfect. We sent one to Owen's parents at the same address as all the other guests. No special treatment, no acknowledgement of their attempted coup. Just a simple invitation to join us at the Botanical Garden on September 14th at 4 p.m. They didn't RSVP. A week before the wedding, Owen's grandmother called him directly. "Your mother told me you're getting married in a garden." "We are, Grandma." "That sounds lovely. Gardens are where things grow. Very appropriate for a marriage. I'll be there." "Mom said you wouldn't come." "Your mother says a lot of things. What she doesn't say is that I got married in my parents' backyard in 1951 with 15 guests and homemade cake. Best day of my life." She paused. "Your mother is terrified, you know." "Terrified of what?" "Of losing control of you. She's always measured her worth by her ability to manage everything perfectly. You choosing your own path means she failed somehow. It's not rational, but there it is. So what do I do? You live your life, sweetheart. She'll either come around or she won't. But you can't build your marriage on her approval." 3 days before the wedding, we still hadn't heard from his parents. Owen called them one last time. "I want you there," he said. "Both of you. But I need you to respect our choices." "We'll be there," Richard said after a long pause. "Your mother is processing." "Processing what?" "The fact that her son is a grown man making his own decisions. It's harder for her than she thought it would be." The wedding day was perfect. Absolutely perfect. The weather cooperated, giving us a crisp September afternoon with brilliant sunshine. The botanical garden was in full bloom, bursting with color. My dress was simple but elegant. Bought off the rack for $800 instead of the $15,000 designer gown Diane had picked out. My bridesmaids wore mismatched dresses in different shades of blue, something Diane had called tacky when she'd seen the photos. They looked beautiful. My brothers walked me down the aisle together, all 3 of them, because I couldn't choose just one. The ceremony was in a clearing surrounded by roses and hydrangeas. We'd written our own vows. When Owen promised to always choose us over expectations, love over appearances, and truth over comfort, I saw him glance toward where his parents were sitting, and they were sitting there, in the 3rd row, not the front row that had been reserved for them, the 3rd row. Behind my parents, behind Owen's grandmother, behind my aunt and uncle. Diane was wearing black, actual black, like she was attending a funeral. Richard sat rigidly beside her, stone-faced, but they were there. The ceremony lasted 20 minutes, short, sweet, personal. Our officiant was a friend from law school who told embarrassing stories about us that made everyone laugh. When we kissed, my brothers whooped so loudly that the garden birds scattered. The reception was held in the garden's conservatory, a glass building surrounded by tropical plants. We'd strung lights everywhere, making it glow as the sun set. The DJ was Owen's college roommate who played an eclectic mix that got everyone dancing. The food was served family style at long tables, encouraging people to talk and share. It was everything we'd wanted. Warm, joyful, real. Diane and Richard sat at their table, barely touching their food. They didn't dance. They didn't mingle. They sat there like stone sentinels, bearing witness to our defiance. During dinner, Owen's grandmother made her way over to us. "Beautiful wedding, darlings. This is exactly what a celebration should be." "Thanks, Grandma." She glanced over at Diane and Richard. "Your mother is stubborn, always has been, but she's here, and that's something. She's wearing black. She's also crying. Look closer." I looked. Sure enough, Diane had a tissue balled up in her fist, mascara slightly smudged. "She'll come around," Grandma said, "or she won't. Either way, you two did the right thing. You built something that belongs to you. That's what marriage is." The speeches were hilarious. My maid of honor told stories about my dating disasters before Owen. Owen's best man revealed that Owen had Googled how to apologize for spilling coffee on someone before asking me to dinner that first time. When the best man finished, Richard stood up. "I hadn't planned for this. We hadn't asked the parents to speak, specifically to avoid drama. I'd like to say a few words," Richard said, his voice carrying across the conservatory. Owen tensed beside me. I reached for his hand under the table. Richard cleared his throat. "When Owen was born, I had certain expectations. I thought I knew exactly who he would become, what path he would follow, what kind of life he would build. I thought planning his future was my job as his father." The room was silent. What I didn't understand until recently is that my job wasn't to plan his life. It was to prepare him to plan his own. He looked directly at Owen. "You've done that, son. You've built something here that I didn't plan, didn't expect, and didn't understand at first." He paused, his composure cracking slightly. "But watching you today, seeing you so happy, seeing the life you've chosen, I realize I got it wrong. Not about you, but about what matters. And I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." He raised his glass. "To Owen and his bride. May your marriage be built on your own terms, not anyone else's." People clapped, but I was watching Diane. She was staring down at her plate, tears now openly streaming down her face. The party continued. My nephews demolished the cake, getting frosting everywhere. My parents danced with Owen's grandmother. My brothers convinced Owen to do shots at the bar. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. Around 10 p.m., as things were winding down, Diane approached me. I was standing by the windows watching the garden lights twinkle. "It was a beautiful wedding," she said quietly. I turned to face her. "Thank you for coming." I almost didn't. She twisted the tissue in her hands. "I was so angry. At you, at Owen, at everything. I couldn't understand why you were throwing away what I was offering. It wasn't what we wanted. I know that now. I had this vision of what Owen's wedding would be. I've had it for 30 years. And watching you plan something completely different felt like you were erasing all of that. We weren't trying to erase anything. We were trying to create something that reflected us. I see that now. Watching you two today, seeing how happy Owen is." She dabbed at her eyes. "He chose this. He chose you, and you let him be himself instead of trying to mold him into something you wanted. That's what love should be. Yes. She looked around the conservatory. This wasn't what I would have chosen, but it was beautiful, and it was real. And maybe that's more important than impressive. Maybe. She took a shaky breath. I'm not good at apologizing. I'm not good at being wrong, but I was wrong. About the wedding, about you, about what mattered, and I'm sorry. Diane, no, let me finish. I've spent so much energy trying to control Owen's life that I forgot to just enjoy being his mother. I don't want to make that mistake anymore. If you'll let me, I'd like to try to build a real relationship with you. Not the one I planned, but the one we actually have. I was surprised to find myself tearing up. I'd like that. Although I still think you should have had the Ashford estate photographer, she added, a tiny smile breaking through. I laughed. Noted. Owen found us a few minutes later, looking between us nervously. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, I said, squeezing his hand. Diane touched his cheek gently. It really is, darling. You did well. Better than I gave you credit for. The wedding ended around midnight. We stood at the entrance, saying goodbye to guests as they left. Owen's parents were among the last to go. Thank you for inviting us, Richard said, shaking both our hands formally. Diane hugged Owen tightly, then surprised me by hugging me too. Call me when you get back from the honeymoon, she whispered. I'd like to take you to lunch, just us. If you're willing. I'd like that, I said. They walked to their car, Richard's arm around Diane's shoulders. I watched them go, feeling something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, and definitely not forgetting, but maybe the beginning of understanding. That was unexpected, Owen said. Your dad's speech was good. My mom apologized to you? Sort of, in her way. He pulled me close. We did it. We did. No regrets? I looked back at the conservatory, still glowing with lights. I thought about the day we'd had, the people who'd celebrated with us, the choices we'd made that had led to this moment. None, I said. Not a single one. We spent our honeymoon in a tiny cabin in Vermont, hiking and cooking and being completely unplugged from everything. When we got back, there was a package waiting at our door. Inside was an envelope and a small box. The envelope contained a check from Richard and Diane for $10,000, made out to both of us. The note read, "For your house fund, no strings attached. Love, Mom and Dad." The box contained a vintage photo album. Inside were pictures of Owen as a baby, a toddler, a teenager. The last page had a space labeled Wedding Day, with a note in Diane's handwriting. I was wrong about what this page should look like. I can't wait to see what photo you choose. Owen sat down heavily on the couch. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. She's really trying. Yeah, she is. The check sat on our kitchen table for a week while we debated what to do with it. Finally, Owen called his parents. We want to accept this, he said, but we need to establish something first. This money comes with no expectations, no strings, and no decisions about our future. Can you agree to that? Yes, Richard said immediately. That's why we sent it. And Mom? I agree, Diane said, her voice slightly muffled through the phone. I'm learning to let go, Owen. It's not easy, but I'm trying. Then thank you. Really. This means a lot. We used the money as a down payment on a small house with a yard, a place that was entirely ours. Diane asked to see it once, came over with a bottle of wine and no advice whatsoever. It was progress. 2 months after the wedding, I took Diane up on her lunch invitation. We met at a quiet restaurant downtown, both of us visibly nervous. I've been seeing a therapist, Diane said after we'd ordered. Since the wedding, she's helping me work through some control issues. That's good. She asked me where I learned that love meant control. I didn't have a good answer. Diane fiddled with her napkin. My mother planned my entire wedding. 600 guests, ice sculptures, the works. I hated every minute of it. Felt like I was on display, performing for people I didn't even know. Then why were you trying to do the same thing to us? Because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. That's what showing love looked like in my family. You controlled things because you cared. She looked up at me, her eyes wet. But you showed me something different. You and Owen built something based on what you actually wanted, not what you thought you should want. And watching you two on your wedding day, seeing how happy you were, it was just a wedding. No, it was a statement. You chose authenticity over approval. That takes courage I never had. Our food arrived, giving us both a moment to compose ourselves. I want to be better, Diane said finally. Better at being Owen's mother, better at being your mother-in-law. I can't promise I won't slip up. Old habits are hard to break, but I'm trying. That's all we can ask. Lunch lasted 3 hours. We talked about everything. Her childhood, my career, Owen's quirks that drove us both crazy, our hopes for the future. By the time we left, something had shifted between us. We weren't friends exactly, but we weren't adversaries anymore either. The rest of that first year of marriage had its challenges. Learning to live together, navigating careers, dealing with family dynamics. But the wedding had set a foundation. We made decisions together, based on what we wanted, not what others expected. Owen's relationship with his parents improved gradually. They started having dinners again, but on neutral ground instead of at their house. Conversations happened without ultimatums. Boundaries were established and, surprisingly, respected. Richard became genuinely interested in Owen's work, asking questions that weren't just about advancement and connections. Diane started sending me articles about cases at my firm, actually engaging with my career instead of dismissing it. It wasn't perfect. Diane still occasionally dropped comments about how much easier things would have been at the Ashford estate. Richard still used business metaphors when giving life advice. But they were trying, and we were trying, and slowly, things got better. A year after the wedding, we had both families over for Thanksgiving. It was our first time hosting, and I was nervous about putting my parents and Owen's parents in the same room for an extended period. I shouldn't have worried. My dad and Richard bonded over terrible golf stories. My mom and Diane discovered a shared obsession with murder mystery novels. My brothers taught Owen's parents how to play the most chaotic card game ever invented. After dinner, as everyone sat around talking and laughing, Diane found me in the kitchen. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up on us. You could have easily written us off after how we acted. Owen might have too, but you kept the door open. You're his parents. That's important to him." Still, she picked up a dish towel and started helping me dry. "I've been thinking about your wedding a lot lately, about why I fought it so hard. And I think I was afraid that if Owen made his own choices and they turned out well, it would mean all my choices were wrong. Like maybe I should have stood up to my own mother, should have planned my own wedding, should have lived differently." She was quiet for a moment. "But watching you two this year, seeing how happy you are, I realize it's not about my choices being wrong. It's about you making better ones. Diane, I'm proud of you," she said. "Both of you. You built something real, and you did it without compromise. That's rare." From the dining room, someone called for her to settle a debate about the best Agatha Christie novel. "Coming!" she yelled back, then turned to me. "Life is strange, isn't it? A year ago, I was ready to cut you out of my son's life. Now I can't imagine him with anyone else." She headed back to the dining room, leaving me standing there with tears in my eyes. Owen found me a few minutes later. "You okay?" "Yeah, just this." I gestured toward the sound of laughter from the other room. "Your parents are arguing with my brothers about whether Miss Marple could beat Hercule Poirot in a fight. My mom's getting really into it too." "I know. It's weird." "Good weird?" "The best weird." He pulled me close. "I keep thinking about the wedding. What if we'd given in? What if we'd let Mom plan everything? We'd have a lot of pictures of people we don't know. We'd also have lost ourselves before we even started. You knew that. You saw what was happening and refused to compromise on something that mattered. That's why I married. I thought you married me because I have excellent taste in coffee shops. That too." He kissed my forehead. "But mostly because you're brave enough to fight for what's right, even when it's hard. Even when it costs something." It did cost something. Your relationship with your parents was rocky for months, but we got through it. And now they're in there arguing about fictional detectives with my new brothers-in-law. I'd call that a win. Someone dropped a plate in the dining room, followed by explosions of laughter. "We should probably go check on that," I said. "Probably." But we stood there for another moment, listening to our families, thinking about how far we'd all come. The wedding had cost us $23,000 of our own money. We'd lost sleep, endured stress, and risked permanent damage to family relationships. But standing there in our kitchen, listening to the sound of our families coming together, I knew we'd made the right choice. Not because the wedding was perfect, though it was for us. Not because everything worked out easily, it absolutely hadn't. But because we'd established from the beginning that our marriage would be built on our terms, with our values, reflecting our truth. That foundation, that refusal to compromise on what mattered, carried us through everything that came after. When Diane showed up at the hospital 3 years later to meet her first grandchild, she brought a onesie that said, "I make my own choices," and laughed so hard she cried. "I deserve that," she said, holding our daughter for the first time. "I absolutely deserve that." "You really do," Owen agreed. She looked up at us. This woman who'd once tried to control every aspect of our lives, now humbled by time and therapy and grandmotherhood. "But thank you," she added softly, "for teaching me that sometimes the best thing you can give someone is the freedom to choose their own path, even when it's not the path you would have chosen for them." Our daughter grabbed Diane's finger and held on tight. "She's strong," Diane observed. "She is," I agreed. "Wonder where she gets that from." Owen laughed. "Both sides, I think. And maybe that was the real gift our wedding gave us. Not just a beautiful day or a lesson in standing our ground, but a roadmap for how to merge two families with different values into something new, something that honored both sides while creating its own identity." Years later, people still talk about our wedding, not because it was extravagant or expensive or featured in magazines, but because everyone who was there felt something real. They witnessed two people choosing love over expectations, authenticity over performance, truth over comfort. And they watched two families, so different in their approaches, learn to respect those choices. When Owen's parents renewed their vows on their 40th anniversary, they asked us to help plan it. Diane specifically requested something small and meaningful, like your wedding was. We held it in our backyard with 30 guests. Diane wore light blue. The food was potluck. Owen's grandmother made a speech about how proud she was that her daughter-in-law had finally learned what she herself had known all along, that love grows best in gardens, not castles. Diane cried happy tears that time, and when they sent out thank you cards afterward, Richard wrote a note to us that I've kept in a drawer with our wedding photos. "Thank you for showing us what matters," it read. "Not just on your wedding day, but every day since. You chose the harder path, the one that required courage and conviction. In doing so, you gave us permission to examine our own choices, to admit our mistakes, and to grow. That's a gift we never expected to receive from our son's marriage, but one we cherish more than you know." Our wedding cost $23,000 and a few months of family tension, but it bought us something priceless: the freedom to build a marriage on our own terms, and a relationship with Owen's parents based on mutual respect instead of control. Years later, when young couples ask us for advice, Owen always tells them the same thing: don't let anyone else plan your wedding. Not because weddings matter so much, but because how you handle that decision sets the tone for everything that follows. I usually add, and if someone offers to pay for everything if they can control it all, run. Run fast. Nothing that comes with strings is actually free. Then we look at each other and remember that September afternoon in the botanical garden, surrounded by people we loved, making promises we meant, building something that was entirely ours. It wasn't what Diane would have chosen for us. It was better, because it was real. And real we've learned always beats impressive, every single time.